Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making a tag from this piece that I found in the dollar store. You can buy these pretty much throughout the year. This is around Valentine's Day, so they have Valentine's theme. We're going to decoupage with paper. This is from Decoupage Queen and this size fits perfectly. It's the approximately 11 by 16 size. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is cut the tag off, and it has this little bow that's attached. So we're going to just pull that off, and then I will be sanding it with a sanding sponge like one of these, and I'll just paint the back. On this side, you don't really need to do anything. You just wipe it off, make sure it's clean. If you see anything off on it, then you can use some crud cutter or maybe a little bit of water and Dawn soap. What we're going to do first is use something called heavy gesso. This one is from Finnabair, and it's white and kind of a thick product, and this is going to act like a primer. So we're just going to lay a coat down, and when that dries, then we can go ahead and add paint. So as I said, it's kind of thick, and you're just going to put a coat down. So let me just finish with this first coat. We'll let it dry, and then I'll be back. Okay, so my tag has dried, and what I did was I took my paper and I drew a line across the top of where my paper is going to come to. So as I said, we're going to use this. This is from Decoupage Queen, and it's called Butterfly Botanical. So we can put this, actually, well, we can cut the top off. So I already had some mixed, but let me show you. This is Saltwash. It's made to mix into your paint, and it does not alter the color of your paint at all. It just is powdery, and what I do is I'll just take a spoon and mix some directly into my paint, usually in a container, but this was almost empty. It's pretty thick, but it's a smooth product, so after you put it on, you let it dry completely, and it will be nice and textured. And what happens is then after your paint, so this is a gravel road, we're going to paint with a cream color on top, so when we sand it, you'll see this color start to show through. So it gives it an aged, distressed, worn look without having to sand all the way through, and it gives it a nice texture to it. So I'm just going to take some and put it here. So what you want to do is pounce it on. You're not going to be brushing it smoothly. You're going to pounce the product on. You're going to let it dry for about 10-15 minutes, and then you're going to come back with your brush and smooth it down. You want to knock down some of the peaks that have formed so it's not too thick, it's not too rough, if that makes sense. You can always go onto the Saltwash YouTube or their Facebook page, and they have a lot of videos showing how to do it. And then when it's completely dry, we will paint with our cream colors. Okay, the Saltwash has dried. I'm going to do just one coat on here because we're going to decoupage the paper, so you're not going to see through it, but you want a nice light background so the paper will show up nice. And I'll do one coat up here, and we'll see if we need to do another one. We'll see how well it covers. I think looks like one coat should just about do it. So I'm going to give this one coat, let it dry, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. The paint has dried, so I'm going to go ahead and decoupage the paper. what I use, I already have this lined up, so I'm gonna leave it here. I'm gonna use Collage Pauge and a brush. You could also do the iron method if you like that, which is a layer of Mod Podge, let it dry, or you could use this too. Let the first layer dry, do a second coat, let that dry, and then come back with your medium hot iron and iron paper. I like that method. You don't get any wrinkles or bubbles that way, but with rice paper, you really don't get any anyway. It's pretty forgiving, and it's really easy to use. I love rice paper. So the iron-on method is really good for tissue paper or napkins. So when you're doing a large piece of furniture, it's good to do the iron method. But with this, just put it on, press it down, going from the inside out. You don't want to rub too hard and drag because it can rip. And then I like to go over it right away with the top coat. And then we'll let it dry for a couple hours. When it's completely dry, we will take the sandpaper and use the sandpaper to get the edges off. Go ahead and press that down, just like before. And then go ahead and do the rest for the top coat. So that's it. We'll leave this here, let it dry, come back and sand off the edges. The glue has dried, so we're just going to take our little sanding sponge here and sand off the edges. Now I always save the extra pieces because you can end up using them for another project, so I just keep a folder of them. What I'm going to do is where we put the texture before, I'm just going to sand a little bit, take some of that off to give it a little distressed look. Okay, that's good. So it still has the feel of texture to it, but it just took off the top layer a little bit. The next step I'm going to do is just a raised stencil on the top part of this tag. And the product I'm going to use is called Icing paste. It's from Finnabair, and this is the vintage gold. And it's a thick product. You need to use some kind of spreader to put it on. And it works great as a raised stencil. You can even use it as sort of a wax. Even though it's a water-based product, you can use it to highlight your molds instead of a wax. And I've even seen people use it in very thin molds, and you put it in like people use for cakes. And they're not thick molds, not deep. They're very thin. You put it on, and when it dries, you pull it out and they're flexible. I've never tried that, but that's pretty cool. So this is vintage gold, and I also love the white gold, and I have the white also. Okay, that looks pretty straight. So I'm just gonna hold this down, put it on, and spread it across. You just want a thin layer. Okay, you're gonna pull it up with off the two corners and pull straight up, and you're gonna have a nice raised stencil there. And we'll finish going across and pull it up, and you're all set. So let that dry and we'll come back and do another step. The Harlequin raised stencil dried. So now we're going to do some molds up here. I use Das modeling clay, it's paper clay. So what I like to do is use a little bit of cornstarch and just spread it lightly into the mold. That way it doesn't stick. You just want to roll your clay in your hands and then press it in. Just spread this in. The other reason I like this mold is because it's extra long and it fits across the top here nicely, and I don't have to piece a few pieces together. So that falls right out, and we're just going to lay it across. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is lay it across here. So I'm just going to keep going and making more pieces. And I lay them across here, and then I'm going to cut it. I cut it like that. Take the top piece off, take the bottom piece off, and then it will fit. It's a nice snug fit. Then here, I'm going to cut this edge off and just meet it up to here. Okay. So I'm going to continue with that all the way around, and at the bottom I decided to do another little mold to make it a little more interesting. And I'm going to use this one right here to fit in the corner. So I'm going to make two of these. One for each corner at the bottom. And then continue with this one all the way around. Okay, I got all of the molds put together and I glued them on, and I use a product called Tight Bond Quick and Thick. So the next step is to paint all the moldings, and I'm going to use the Dixie Belle Drop Cloth again. I use a very small brush when doing this because I want to try to keep it from getting on the paper too much. So it's going to take me quite a while to do all of this molding. So I'm going to paint this and then I'll be back. The next step I'm going to do is a coat of Wise Owl matte varnish, and I'm going to put one coat on the paint and 2 to 3 coats on top of the decoupage here, just one coat over here. I just want to make sure that the decoupage is really sealed on there, and also when we go to do the dark wax in the next step, it will be easier to wipe off if this is varnished. So we're just gonna, this is the end of my container here. So just mix it up a little bit and go in nice long strokes going down, and let it dry a couple hours in between. We only need one coat on top of the molds because we're going to do a coat of wax, so that will help to keep it sealed. And the wax also adds, we're going to do brown wax, so it adds the aging look to it. So we're just going to go lightly, go over this part, and then we'll do the molds. Okay, so for the last step, we're using wax, dark brown wax. The brand I use is called Authentico, and I like it because you can still wipe it away once you've used it. You don't have to use clear wax first. And we're gonna put it on the edges to make it look like it's been around for years and it's a little dusty, a little dirty. And that's the effect you get from the brown wax. So you can go lighter and you can always add more. You're going to want to put it on and let it sit for a couple minutes and then wipe it off. So we're just going to put this all over, making sure to push it down, especially in this mold here. Push it down into all of the recesses there. This is a deep one, so you want to make sure you get it in there, and you want to get it in right next to the mold. All right, so let me just show you what this looks like. Use a clean portion of your towel, and you're just going to wipe, leaving everything in the recesses there. And that's the effect you're going for. You can wipe it off the paper. Since we varnished it, it comes off a little bit. You just want it sort of faded on the edges. Now if it's coming off too much for you, you could either leave it sit a little longer or do another pass with the wax. Okay, I let this sit for a good 15 minutes actually. But see how it's so nice. It's all in the crevices in this mold, and it brings out all the highlights. We added a little bit up here, and you can still see a little bit of the distressing through there. All right, I have some gold wax here. This is a Stamperia brand. And let's just see how this, of course it looks good. You need a little gold wax on everything, I think. Now the last thing I did, I had a little piece of ribbon and I wanted to make it look older. So I just crinkled it up and wrapped it with a rubber band. It was cream colored, and I put just a little bit of dark wax. I tried a lot on one ribbon, a little bit on another. I just didn't want it to be so shiny. So I kind of like that. And I'm just going to make a little bow. This one I'm going to just pull through the hole. And this one I'm just going to glue right here. E6000 is a really strong glue, and it's clear. So this won't dry immediately, but it will stay here. So here's a finished product. We have the beautiful paper from Decoupage Queen, molds, wax, gold, raised stencils, and a lot of people ask me all the time where I get my things, and a lot of this can be purchased at the store called TH Decor ATL on Etsy, and that's where a lot of my products come from. And of course Decoupage Queen for the paper. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, please subscribe and check out my Facebook and my Instagram, and you'll see pictures. I also did a few more of these tags, and you'll see pictures soon of those, and that way you'll get an idea of other things that you can do with these, not just the molds, but all kinds of things. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, everybody.